I keep thinking back to that video he made after the when he lost the court case, and he looked so sad in that, so really down and not upbeat like he was normally. And I feel somehow he's having probably second thoughts. Maybe this is not such a great.
I mean, with the BBC interview, because
Yeah.
I thought the same. I
So
wondered, that
sad.
was only a month ago, you
Yeah,
know?
I know.
It's been years, and as you say, for better or worse, Meghan's forging ahead with her
Yeah,
path, but
yeah.
seeing Harry look exactly as you say,
All he wanted
looking
to
so
do was
defeated and
reconcile with his father.
yes, and it's so reflective, and it's still that looking back. And I think it appeared, and look, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but from that interview and the things he was saying, it just appears he seems quite stuck.
I just think that was.
And as you say, if he wants to reconcile his father, that video was exactly the thing not to do, because now, you know, as far as the palace are concerned, they can't share anything private with him because they're worried it will just end up in the public realm.
Well, the thing is, Chris, if he'd have said that on that show, I said this on a recent tonight, you know, if he'd have only said sorry on that sorry, Pop, you know, I do want to, you know, see you. I mean, I think that might have had a difference, but...
Do you know what? I remember doing an interview with Harry in, where were we? It was in Africa, towards the end of their Africa tour. We were in Malawi, actually, and he'd done a couple of media interviews through the course of that Africa tour. But as we know, at the end of it, we had the Tom Bradley interview with Meghan where it all kind of fell apart. But just before that happened, I did an interview with Harry in Malawi just about sort of conservation and environmental issues, and he was really, really sort of pent up. He was really very sort of stressed, and he just would talk. You would ask him one question, a bit like with the BBC interview. You'd ask him one question and he'd talk for like sort of 5 or 6 minutes. And I recognised that Harry in that BBC video, someone who was really kind of ill at ease with everything. And I just think that BBC interview, you know, if reconciliation with his family is something that he wants to do, it was completely the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, it was. But, you know, in many ways, it was coming from his heart, I thought, you know, really...
Why do you think he's like that, though?
Well, his father's not well, is he? He's obviously concerned, you know. I mean, he's his father, for God's sake.
We've travelled around the world. We've been to places like Singapore and Boston, and we've seen Prince William deliver speeches about the environment to do with his Earthshot Prize. Seeing him in Monaco speaking with world leaders on such a huge stage, what I got from that is or what I saw or what I heard was almost a passing of a baton from King Charles, who's delivered, as when he was Prince of Wales, so many speeches like this on the blue economy, on saving the oceans, passing it to his son. What did you take from William in Monaco?
I thought this one was different for a couple of reasons. Firstly, yes, we've heard him speak about Earthshot, but that is to his own competition, if you like, the one he set up 5 years ago. We're now into the halfway stage of it. But this was a speech to world leaders, and it felt like the kind of thing that his father used to do when he was Prince of Wales. In fact, I went to a Blue Economy conference in Malta a few years ago and interviewed the then Prince Charles about his passion for the environment. And oceans is a big deal. We forget it's largely out of sight, as David Attenborough's new film reminds us. Because it's out of sight, we don't see the damage that we're doing, and yet what happens in the oceans affects all of us. And this felt like a new departure for Prince William. This was his moment as sort of stepping up as a global statesman, as his office likes to call him. But
we keep being told that, don't we, Chris?
This
is him becoming a global statesman. This is him on the world stage, and we've been waiting to see it. We are told that he's now a global statesman for the last year or so. But he's met Trump. You know, remember in Paris?
Yep.
He was there with Macron. We've got the state visit with Macron coming up. We are actually beginning to see him almost stepping into his father's, not into his father's shoes, but really stepping up into the Prince of Wales role that his father left behind.
Which is the role of the heir to the throne. I mean, it is, of course, a sort of the training job for the one that's coming down the track at some point in the future. But yes, you're right to say that we are seeing more and more of Prince William acting as the sort of global statesman. And we've got big events coming up. There's another Earthshot later this year in Brazil. And he now needs to show the difference it's making, because we're now at the sort of halfway stage. It's a 10-year project. We're 5 years in. And also being held in Brazil this year is the UN Climate Summit COP. Well, we don't know whether he's going or not, but it's not beyond the realms of imagination that he'll also be at that summit as well.
Bronte, Chris just mentioned there, we're halfway through his decade of Earthshot Prize, where he's taking it around the world. He appears to be ramping up his language, or he appears to be ramping up his occasions where he actually wants to take to the stage and talk about saving the environment. This is a new thing, talking about saving the oceans with David Attenborough. How do you think he's getting on?
I think he's getting on really well. And I was giving this some thought recently watching him. I think that we're seeing an increasing confidence in the role of Prince of Wales because it is such a different role than the one he had before. He has had a little bit of a blueprint from his father, as you've mentioned, because he was speaking so passionately about the environment for so long. And seeing William now taking on this role even more, I think that over the last few years, it's been only a few years since the late Queen died, I do think that he's settling into the role now more than he had before. And we're seeing the results, even things like last month, I think the latest YouGov poll had him at the top of the popularity list for members of the royal family. He is connecting with people in a way that's seeing them really respond to the work he's doing with the environment, with homelessness. And I think when he sees that being fed back in terms of how people are reacting to it, it gives him that increasing confidence to get up there and make these passionate speeches. And also, I was reminded a little bit in this recent one of a speech that Prince Charles made a few years back when he was still Prince Charles before he became the king, when he described the environment as we're in a last chance saloon. And I think it was a little bit of that when we heard William speaking, which was, this is the time, it is an urgent call to action. We're not doing enough, basically, is the subtext.
With the comparisons between son and father, the amount of times we've sat there, Arthur as well, watching the King deliver speeches, in Canada recently, and in Germany and in France, he will use the local language as well. He will do a little bit, and William did that in this speech. He spoke at the opening of the speech in French and the end of the speech in French. There does seem a little bit of a little correlation there.
It was a sentence at the beginning and a sentence at the end, so I don't think they were pushing the sort of the French, bilingualism too far. Let's put it that way. I mean, I was really impressed when the King did it in German to the Bundestag in Berlin. He also did it in France and particularly in Italy, because he's not very good at Italian, or at least he was having to try really hard at it. But Prince William did a single sentence at the beginning and the end. I mean, 10 out of 10 for effort.
Prince William is doing it with that high-level statesman, meeting Macron, meeting all these people. Prince Charles went to all the rainforests. I think I've been to every rainforest in the world with him, 3 times to the Amazon rainforest. I saw him plead with these presidents to stop ripping up this precious resource. He was much more action man, I remember, and we'd go to a rainforest and he'd say, we never see any creatures here, we never see any animals here. He said, because behind every tree there's a policeman or a soldier protecting me, he said. It's hopeless, but he did it that way, and Williams did it his way. And probably Williams get more things done that way, but Charles cared so much. And I was at that Malta thing when he released the turtles.
Yes,
made a great
I was just about to say that. It's beautiful.
And his speech, he said, plastic's now on the menu because the fish are digesting the plastic. I mean, he did. I think that resonated with me more than anything, that speech, and certainly releasing the trapped turtles, after they'd been and looked after. But so he was more physical, in the rainforest, sort of talking to the local people, and absolutely just cared so much. And he's been not doing it for 5 minutes, he's been doing it for 30, 40 years. And William's obviously just carrying on that, but he's carrying on in a different way. They're going off to Brazil for 2 days and Monaco for a day and a half. And it's great, but I think the way our King did it was better. I think, you saw he was in action.